The Invisible Humans of Melbourne project began at the beginning of 2020 when local Melbourne charity, The Break, began handing out care packages to the homeless. This quickly grew to chatting with many homeless who were surviving by selling artwork on the streets. The Break staff noticed how many people passing by would pretend not to see the homeless or look away as they walked by, like the homeless were invisible, as a homeless person's gaze risked catching the same contagion of their adversity. The Break staff brainstormed how to make these invisible people human again to mainstream society. They realised passers-by needed to listen to their words and hear their voices and know their stories. They needed to see the person and not just their disadvantage. The average passer-by would never stop to chat, so the invisible needed to be seen for their artistic selves, and only afterwards the barriers they faced that many may see as a point of difference. It was decided showing both artist and disadvantage aspects in the one video would undermine seeing the human first, that is the artist. Then only in a second video would we highlight the barriers the artist must navigate to produce their artwork. Before a standard set of questions could be formalised, the COVID lockdown hit Melbourne, removing most homeless from the streets and making face-to-face meetings all but impossible. This dragged on longer than anyone in Melbourne ever expected. When the lockdown lifted, the homeless artists did not return to the streets. The Break then reached out to experts in the field of helping disadvantaged artists, widening their purview to continue the original project with any disadvantaged artists. This proved complicated. Some artists, after being interviewed, asked to be removed from the final edit, as they reported the elitism of the art world, especially locally, was so great that any adversity attached to their names would reduce their chances of securing art gallery showings. The art world in Australia supposedly only tolerates highly capable artists with no stigma or controversy attached to their names. The following artists may appear quirky or different. Please try to see beyond their points of difference, to hear their words, absorb their meaning, and see the inherent wisdom from some of society's most ignored, judged, and overlooked people.
Well, my name's Tim, but I'm better known as Frog. I'm 30, going on 31, and, well, originally around Albury, New South Wales, I was all born, and moved around from there.
Raphael, the Buerologist, Kaleb, 54, from Melbourne.
My name's Timea, I'm 31, and I'm from Brisbane.
My name is Roland van Olphen, I'm 39 years old, and I'm from Melbourne, Australia.
None. Because I have no formal training in the art world, because I use my art to communicate, because people could never understand me. And basically the main thing we're exposed to in life, in the mass media, in the Western society, is of course eroticized images. Even though mine is a feminist portrayal, worshipping the goddess.
The artists that did influence me were part of diverse communities such as people with a disability. For example, people like Heidi Everett, who is chairperson of Mojo Film Festival. Now, that was about making a difference, not at an individual level, about making a huge difference to the community. Mojo Film Festival is a short film festival for people who identify as having a mental illness, specifically schizophrenia, to tell their side of the story the way that they want to tell their side of the story, and not about it's done from a social model as opposed to a medical model of disability. Other people that have influenced me are people like Larissa McFarlane. Larissa is famous for any number of types of artwork, ranging from lino cuts to handstands. If you see a handstand in Melbourne, I'll almost guarantee Larissa will be commissioned to pose for that one. But more importantly, from macro change, Larissa's baby brainchild was Disability Pride, the mural in Footscray.
Wow, there's so many. I'm inspired by people who do original things.
I think early on the work of Mark Rothko really inspired me with his field paintings, colour field paintings. Later on the line and wall artwork of Sol LeWitt and the impermanency of that work really inspired me. I like the way that he worked off the notion of a set of instructions, and therefore the work could be recreated over and over again with some of his works, and I've applied some of that to my practice over the years.
Wherever my imagination takes me. Mainly I'm going into delving in the inner darkness. Once the great sadness lifts, the inner darkness is mainly to all the esoteric knowledge. So the purple throwing up primordial storm is one that's going to be coming up in such sequences.
More along spoken word as relating to my background. For example, storytelling through song titles, such as I started as a paperback writer before coming a painter man. I know I'll survive. I ain't too proud to beg. In the distance, I can hear the sound of music. Barbara Ann, she was keen on the young American, and said, I got you, babe. Come on, let's dance. Well, I've got moves like Jagger. In fact, I'm Jumping Jack Flash himself. All of a sudden, I'm a DJ. When I was in the 70s, all my friends said, you're the voice, but I hate the music. Didn't want to end up a rock and roll suicide like Ziggy Stardust. By 1984, the world was Radio Gaga. Video killed the radio star. So I told the boss, you can take this job and shove it. Come and crack that called Aladdin Sane. No wonder, what's my scene? A different way of doing things. Tell the biography in a very mixed up way to actually connect with others. Most people who are familiar with music would recognise most of those songs. That piece has got around 900 song titles in 15 minutes. Other people can't do it. It's been compared to ostentatious. That's one way of doing it.
All around me, like I get inspired from my friends and nature and animals, and I don't know, there's so many different things that I get inspiration from just all the time. I don't know.
I think, currently in terms of artists that I'm looking at, I think I'm actually looking more within, and I'm looking at myself, and looking less for the inspiration that I needed as a teenager and in my early 20s when I was studying fine arts at university, and looking more for a sort of an original voice or image.
Not really. I've only started a mentorship this year with FCAC. That was about it. And otherwise, I've been spending my time working from flatlanders into the 3D perspective.
Any kind of training, is it beneficial? Probably not. This is the truth, is that it may give a person a piece of paper, but does it show competence? We're talking art. It's kind of like qualitative versus quantitative methods. What actually is art? How is art? How do you actually grade this? And how do you actually come with an objective judgment? There's that many rules around it. You can break every rule and guarantee somebody will say you're either a genius or a complete dickhead. Now, so how my art training evolved was that I was very, very fortunate. Part of it was that since 2013, I've had one very, very gifted professional at a world level take a special interest in what I was doing, taking me under their wing, helped guide me with my journey, so I got insights which you won't get out of a course. Some of these people I'd like to talk about because this is how you get the training. A person like, I've mentioned Larissa, I've mentioned Heidi Everett, and I've mentioned Carly. I know them all as people as well. It's not a bad way to actually get informal training on the job, to learn from people who actually know exactly what they're doing. People like Phil Hodgson Roda, I know he can kill me when I pronounce his wrongly for about that upturns time. He's got an Order of Australia for working with people with a disability and creativity in music. It's not a bad person to learn from, and he's a former Busker of the Year winner in South Australia. I think it was 1985. It's a good person to learn from. People like John, I can't think. He was the lead singer of Scared Weird Little Guys. He took me under his wing for about 12 months. A lady, Sarah Jane Woolahan, I assisted her with a set of videos. She'd worked with Silverchair, REM, Missy Higgins. It's kind of like it's a good person to actually learn from. Like even with photography, I have never picked up a formal course of photography. I've got a very, very good eye for it. I have never been taught how to position a camera or a photograph. I do it automatically, and I have the knack of being in the right spot at the right time. Even with comedy, for example, a lady called Justine Sless, she was the president of, I think it was, she was something to do with the Jewish Comedy Festival. I think she was the director of it. I did a short course in comedy. She facilitated. They're good people to learn from.
It's more so like experience on the job. So I was doing stripping and dancing, and that gave me experience in that field. And then I decided to try modelling because someone suggested it, and I just kind of like do what I sort of can in the environment that I'm in. Like COVID's been pretty hard, but yeah, looking forward to work with more people once all the restrictions are gone.
That's a very interesting question. So through 2000 to 2004, I studied fine arts at RMIT. At the time, I was a little bit more interested in the extracurricular activities than doing the work. But one thing I've said over the years, the Bachelor of Fine Arts didn't teach me how to become an artist. I was an artist before I got that piece of paper. It taught me how to think analytically and how to be able to take criticism constructively and give it as well.
Frees me. Well, it's just the expression of your true inner psyche and the wicked little creatures that evolve. For example, the keys of eternity can mean any set thing to any number of people.
Good point. It's kind of like, it gives me a chance to annoy more people than usual. Seriously, is that, again, Sarah Jane Woolahan taught me well about the concept of what actually is art. It's not art by definition if it doesn't have the capacity to be an absolutely spectacular failure. That makes sense to somebody like myself. It may not make sense to other people. It makes sense to somebody like me.
I find it to be like really like therapeutic, and I just like the idea of expressing myself, because in the past I feel like I've been like tricked into being quiet or into like not expressing myself fully. So I feel like art kind of helps me be more of a person and process my emotions and experiences that happen to me.
Through the few rehabilitation programs that I've undergone over the last 3 years, art therapy has been a big part of those programs, and I was incredibly fearful whenever those sessions came up. It was quite strange, and I think I carried a lot of shame, not only just around my addiction and the position I found myself in life. I was homeless and those sorts of things, but I felt the weight of expectation because over there's a piece of paper saying that I'm an artist, and we're doing collage, and I was struggling to think of anything to cut out of National Geographic to put together. So as I warmed to that idea, the idea of letting go of the concept and the theory and what I was trying to achieve and just enjoying the process, well, it was incredibly painful at first. And that was because of that expectation I put on myself. I was thinking about the end product and not about the therapy, the process, and connecting with the others in the room and all of that sort of thing. now it's a very meditative process for me, and I enjoy it immensely.
Well, generally it's artists that go see artists' work, not the wider mainstream community. Because it's like my parents who are working class, they would never succeed in a career in art or drama. So it was always be a worker, raise a family, GSD, get stuff done.
No one is all good, no one is all bad. The point is to give somebody redeemable qualities, to actually build a lesson so people can connect with others and say, hey, that could be the person that I would like to meet. Well, that's it again. I'm really going to put this one really out from a diverse perspective. And I'm going to go back to my little standard thing of mathematics, because people hate mathematics and art. There are 25 million people approximately in Australia. Facts. Now, 5 million people identify as having a disability. Facts. And the real figure's a lot higher. Now, of the 20 million people who are part of mainstream community who don't count in my book anyway, now 1 in 10 has got art is something which they might purchase at some point. 2 million people, okay? Let's take it from a diverse perspective. There's 5 million people with a disability in Australia. 4 million of those people have got art in their top 3 interests. That's 80% of them. That's 4 million people. Do you think I care what the mainstream community is? No. Why would I go through and try to fight my way as basically a person with a disability who is white, with some interesting stories to tell, on the basis of some dickhead in a record company can exploit what I do, when I can actually tell stories and make a huge difference by telling the stories that I want to tell, not the ones which are commercial crap?
I'm not sure I agree, because I think that like you can make anything into an art, I guess. Like you can do little things, everyday things in an artistic or creative way. So I think that saying, oh, most people don't get it, that's kind of like making it seem like maybe artists are a bit pretentious, and I don't think that that's a good message. Okay. I think it's more like it's good to just be open to it, because I don't know, we're all capable of doing things more outside the box than what we do. So it's just good to get an open mind and like that kind of thing.
The idea of letting go of the concept and the theory and what I was trying to achieve, and just enjoying the process, which funnily enough was what my work had always been about, process. And so just enjoying the process with no expectation, and using art as therapy has been a great healing tool for me.
Probably Mi Amor Esperanza, My Love Hope. I worked on it for 6 months, and it's based off, the main images on there are the hear no, see no, speak no. By calling it My Love Hope, it draws you through the actual symbology images with the praying mantis, the snake, the bird's nest, the bird, the butterfly.
It's got to be disability pride. The mural in Footscray, hands down, that it's basically equal first. If it's a piece of art that's a standalone piece of art, it has to be disability pride for the difference that it made to other people. On the other hand, if it had to be a piece of art that connected to people, it would, or made longevity, it would be Mojo Film Festival, because it's the stories of people being able to tell the stories that they want to, without fear, without worrying about, is this perfect art, their stories, their way. Now that is about making social change to make that difference in the community, as opposed to, or someone like Shel DeStefano. I'm a very big fan of Shel DeStefano, a very gifted deaf artist. Primarily is that she started to use her art and her talents to educate others about deaf culture and the hard of hearing culture. Now to me, that is making that difference. I know people out there, like, for example, there's a book coming out next year, edited by Carly Finlay, called Growing Up Disabled. it's in a different field altogether. Now that to me is art at another level, because it's about people telling us stories to connect in a written form so that people may read that, and to me that is what is actually important.
Music is my favourite one, just because I love music so much. Like, it's gotten me through hard times when I haven't had like family or friends or whatever. I just put some music on, and there's a song for every mood, and I just want to give back to that, because I've gotten so much out of music that I want to give back to that, if that makes sense.
My favourite piece of art will be an installation I did around 2004 with two churches that I placed on the wall of a gallery, and there was some green paint dripping below. And what I liked about that work was I was flicking through a book in the library, and I found these two very, very old images of the images was like unknown church in Western Victoria. They're old timber churches that long gone, long destroyed, built even possibly pre-gold rush. And these are the only images of those churches. So I tried to create, cutting out of balsa wood, a physical representation of these churches, and they took absolutely ages to make, because I just bought sheets of balsa wood and just cut and listened to music, and I enjoyed it so much. But every little slither of offcut of balsa wood I kept on scraping into a bag, and beneath those installations on the floor, I just dropped those emptied the bags on the floor, and I really enjoyed that, because I have this strange relationship with religion. I'm agnostic. I have no definitive position on religion, but I'm just very intrigued by it, because I sort of think that all religions are really just a search of our own humanity, or something along those lines, something unknown, something unknowable. And just like I couldn't know what the back of that building looked like from these very grainy black and white photos of things that didn't exist anymore, I had to sort of put the pieces together. And then I placed them on the walls so the spiders were at people's eye height, because I'm just a bit cheeky.
I only use ink. I start with fine liner, no pencil. So it's like tattooing. If you make a mistake, you better be able to fix it, otherwise it's going to look... Ooh. The Lilypad Studios, with the book, Frog's Hollow book in Lilypad Studios, is essentially my product of 2.5 years of work to try and communicate with the world, for them to actually understand me, because I was never understood and always rejected for my entire life. Never had any real friends, and when you live on the outskirts of society, you're already dead. But I got bored of that and came back to the world of living.
In 2012, when I moved into this unit, I was sleeping across that little spot just where you're standing. I was waking up screaming with hunger and cold each night. I had a sheet over me. I had a pen and paper. That's where it started. To find out what you're worth. And kind of like when I did that when it was winter, I'd get up, there'd be dew straight out there on my windows, a lot of frost. You find out what can you actually do. It's like even with people want to go through, and that's where it began. A pen and paper, because it's all I had. A pen is maybe 30 cents. I didn't have anything. A piece of paper, if I lost that pen, it meant I had no entertainment for a few days, because I didn't have the 30 cents to get another pen unless you wanted to steal it. But hey, can you imagine that in court? I'm in court, what are you charged for? Shoplifting a 30-cent pen. Keep it serious. Look, suck it up and get on with it. I didn't have a radio and I didn't have a television, let alone the internet. You find out what the imagination comes into it. That's where it begins. Over time, I was able to get things like a computer, so I was able to record things on a more permanent basis. I discovered that you can actually write as much as what you want. The way around it, you learn the craft, you learn to memorize what you're doing, it actually helps a lot. You learn to do a bit of drama, a bit of engagement there. That's where learning about music goes into it. Later on, I got things like a camera, so I learnt about it. That's where it begins. It's like even playing the game of charades. You take what you can, you bring it into, and what do I actually need for art is that I need an imagination. I believe I need an imagination. I need an ability to actually maybe tell a story or show a story. And as for an audience, it's called showmanship. That's where people learn to busk. People forget it. If a person's a writer, they need to know to memorise their pieces, put on a show for somebody, and the story becomes, how did you come in? Learn to engage with others. By the way, thank you very much. Where's my dinner tonight? God bless you. Very, very kind of you. What's your favourite thing? I'll write a song about you while you're standing there. That's on how you do it. Learn to think very, very quickly. And
Mostly like just myself. I like just using myself. And I like fashion as well. I like instruments, laptop, phone. I don't know, there's anything really. Like, you can get really creative and use anything. I'm not sure. I don't know, I like performance, so I like to use myself and the emotions within me. I don't know.
I've used a lot of mediums. So with those pieces, I did a larger series in Bolswood. I've used a lot of oil paint. Haven't used much acrylic. I don't get much joy out of acrylic. There's something about oil paint, so viscous and visceral and it's nice, and the smell and the time it takes to dry and all of those things. There's something about it. And I did so much work that was really expensive, so I took tons of oil paint of one colour on canvases, and just for years watch it dry and watch them shrink. And, unfortunately, through circumstances, I've lost so much of that stuff. It's sort of nice to think that it's drying and shrinking here somewhere. Those two small black pieces, they're probably 20 years old this year and they're not quite dry yet. And that's
there was much discussion among the break staff involved in this project as to what to include and exclude. We ultimately decided we were in no position to define art, and we would leave this up to our audience. We included 4 very different types of artists. We also decided to split the videos of the artist and their disadvantage or point of difference. Language in this area can be tricky, as it all sounds so derogatory that we found ourselves struggling at times to talk with some artists without unavoidably relegating them in some way, as some felt their diagnoses were actually a superpower and the source of their creativity, not a disability. We found many disclosures very insightful. At times we needed to look a bit deeper to see beyond their quirkiness in idiosyncrasies to what they're actually saying. As transpersonal researcher Stanislav Grof has often alluded to, some people are not damaged but operate in non-ordinary states of consciousness, and maybe it is the limitations of mainstream society that makes us fail to understand them, not their misunderstanding of us or reality itself. Tolstoy offered another perspective in his book What is Art, where he asserted that art should transcend what the eye normally sees. Hence, a perfect reproduction of an uninspiring photograph would likely be relegated poor art. If we operate by this definition, then many people would argue over which of the artists we interviewed are included in the episode meet this criteria. Such is the subjectivity of art, and many of our artists astutely identified this very point. Maybe the true power of art is not in experts claiming it is a masterpiece or to garner praise for the artist, but in how it affects the artist in its creation and transforms the audience in their viewing of it. Please check in to see the artists discuss the barriers they faced in creation of their art in our second episode in this series. Artists triumphing over indifference, coming soon.